25F pregnant and facing a heartbreaking decision. My boyfriend doesn't want the baby, and I don't know what to do. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. I remember the day so clearly, almost too clearly. I had always thought my life was pretty stable. I'm 25 and I've been with my boyfriend, Ethan, for 5 years. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but I never expected a sudden change like this to shake everything up. I was happy. We were happy, or so I thought. The thing is, I have endometriosis, a condition that made me believe I would never be able to get pregnant. My doctors had always told me that it would be nearly impossible, and I had accepted that. Over the years I had learned to live with it, to cope with the uncertainty of my future. The thought of having kids, of building a family, seemed more like a distant dream than a possibility. So when I realized that I was late, like really late, I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was stress. Maybe it was just another irregularity in my cycle. But something in my gut told me to take a test just to be sure. The results were shocking. Two bright pink lines. Positive. I stared at the test for a moment, trying to process what I was seeing. Was it even possible? Could I actually be pregnant? The disbelief hit me hard, but as the shock started to wear off, a rush of excitement followed. I couldn't believe it. I had never thought this would happen, but here I was holding a test that said I was going to be a mother. I ran to Ethan, eager to share the news. When I showed him the test, his reaction wasn't what I expected. His face drained of color. The first thing he said was, "Is it too late to get an abortion tonight?" He asked it so quickly, so urgently, that I felt like I had been slapped. My mind was still processing the fact that I was pregnant, but it was clear that Ethan's mind was already racing in the other direction. He didn't seem happy. He didn't seem excited. He seemed terrified. I tried to give him a moment to absorb the news, but it didn't get any better. Over the next 2 days, he wouldn't look at me. He barely spoke to me. It felt like he was shutting me out completely. I understood that he was scared, that this wasn't the plan for us. But the way he withdrew from me, the way he didn't even try to comfort me or talk things through, it hurt. We had always been able to communicate, to work through tough things together. But now it felt like I was talking to a stranger. I knew that this wasn't the perfect time for a baby. The pregnancy was unplanned and it would come with a lot of stress. But we were financially stable. We had a roof over our heads, both of us had good jobs, and we were healthy. I thought we could make it work. We could find a way to provide for a child, to give them the stability they needed. I didn't know if I would ever get pregnant again, especially with my condition. This could be my one chance, and I wanted to hold on to that possibility. But Ethan, he didn't seem to want to even consider that. It was like his only option in his mind was abortion. That's all he kept bringing up over and over. He wasn't asking what I wanted or how I felt. It was like my thoughts and feelings didn't matter. It was as if this was something that needed to be fixed as soon as possible. The thought that he didn't even want to have a baby with me, his partner of 5 years, left me feeling hollow. After a few days of silence, I finally broke down and decided to talk to my mom. She was the one person I thought I could count on. I told her everything: the shock of the pregnancy, Ethan's reaction, how I was feeling. I didn't expect her to have all the answers, but I hoped for some support. Instead, she sent me a bunch of baby clothes from Amazon, as if she thought this was a done deal, as if she believed the decision had already been made, that I was already going down the path of motherhood. I was speechless. All I wanted was to have a conversation, to explore my options, to understand what I needed. But instead, my mom was trying to take control, as if she already knew what was best for me. It felt like another punch to the gut. I didn't need baby clothes, I didn't need more pressure, I just needed space to think and to make the choice that was right for me. And that's where I am now, feeling completely alone. I'm stuck in this weird limbo, unsure of what to do next. I feel like I'm on the edge of a cliff, and I don't know which direction to jump in. On one hand, I'm scared of going through with the pregnancy. The idea of bringing a child into this world when I'm not entirely sure about my relationship with Ethan, when everything feels so uncertain, it's terrifying. On the other hand, I can't ignore the fact that this could be my only chance at motherhood. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get pregnant again. I don't want to regret letting this opportunity slip away. And then, of course, there's the matter of my relationship. The way Ethan has shut me out, the way he's refused to engage with me during the past few days, it feels like he doesn't even care. Like he doesn't care about me, about our future, about our family. I've invested 5 years into this relationship. I don't know if he's just scared or if he's simply not the person I thought he was. I don't know if there's any future for us anymore. I'm overwhelmed. I'm emotionally exhausted. I feel like I've been abandoned by the people I love, and I don't know where to turn next. I know that whatever decision I make will shape my life in ways I can't predict. But I can't keep living like this, feeling torn, feeling alone, feeling like no one is on my side. I need to make a choice, but it's the hardest decision I've ever faced. The fear of making the wrong one keeps me up at night. I don't know what the right thing to do is. I don't know if I'm making the right choice by considering abortion. What I do know is that I need to make this decision for me, and not because of anyone else's expectations or pressures. I have to listen to myself, even if it feels like I'm doing it alone. The isolation is overwhelming, and I feel like I'm drowning in my own emotions. I wish I didn't have to face this alone, but for now it feels like I'm the only one who can make this decision. Update: it's been a few days since I last wrote about everything that's been happening, but I still don't feel any clearer on where I stand. If anything, things have only gotten more confusing and emotionally draining. I find myself oscillating between the need for clarity and the overwhelming weight of uncertainty. I haven't spoken to Ethan much since that night. The silence between us has grown louder, more unbearable. Every time I try to open up to tell him how I feel, I'm met with nothing but distance. He's still closed off, avoiding eye contact, refusing to have a real conversation. I tried once just to sit down and ask him to talk about everything openly, but he just shut me down. "I don't know what you want me to say," was all he could offer. It was like a wall had been built between us, brick by brick, until I felt like I was speaking to a stranger. That's the hardest part of all of this, the feeling of being alone even when someone is right there with you. There's a part of me that wants to believe this is just fear talking, that deep down he's just overwhelmed by the sudden responsibility. I want to believe that maybe, with time, he'll come around. But every time I look at him, I wonder if I've already lost him, if the man I've shared 5 years of my life with is someone I don't even recognize anymore. It's not just the lack of support from him that's wearing me down. It's also the way I've been treated by others. My mom, despite her initial attempts to fix things by sending me baby clothes, hasn't been much help either. When I called her again, hoping for a softer approach this time, "You'll figure it out, honey," she said. "It'll all fall into place." But it didn't feel like advice. It felt like she was brushing everything under the rug, trying to avoid the reality of how much I was struggling. There's no acknowledgement of how complicated my emotions or how confused I feel, or the fact that I'm not just dealing with a pregnancy, but with the unraveling of my relationship. And it's not just about Ethan and my mom. Every little thing seems to trigger the feelings of isolation. I ran into an old friend at the grocery store yesterday, someone I hadn't seen in a while. She asked how everything was going, and when I said, "Well, I'm pregnant," her eyes widened with that expression of shock. But the excitement wasn't there in her eyes. It was more like she was trying to be polite, trying to make me feel better about a situation that I felt wasn't so simple. She didn't ask how I was feeling about it, didn't offer any words of support. just that superficial, knee-jerk reaction that felt more like a mask than anything else. I'm starting to feel like no one truly understands what I'm going through. Even though I've tried to explain, no one really listens to me. It's like everyone is so focused on what's supposed to happen, what they think should happen, that they forget that I'm the one in the middle of all this. I'm the one whose body is changing, whose emotions are all over the place. I'm the one who has to make a decision that could shape the rest of my life. The more I think about it, the more I feel like I'm stuck in a place between worlds. I want to believe that this pregnancy could be something beautiful, that it could be a new beginning. I've always wanted to be a mother, even though I thought it would never happen. But then every time I try to let myself dream of that possibility, I can't help but wonder if this baby would be welcomed into a home full of love and stability, or if it would be raised in the middle of confusion. That's not the kind of environment I want to create, not for a child. I think that's part of what scares me the most, the idea that maybe this baby wouldn't have the kind of future it deserves if I stay with Ethan. But then there's this pull to keep the pregnancy. I think about what my life could be like as a mother, how I could raise this child with love, how I could give them the best life possible. Maybe I could find a way to do it on my own. I know I've got the resources, and I have a strong network of friends and family who would be there for me even if I don't feel like they understand completely. The thought of keeping the pregnancy and building my life around that idea is comforting in a way. But I can't ignore the weight of everything that's been happening, the tension with Ethan, the disconnection. I know it's easy for some people to say, just do what's best for you, but what does that even mean in this situation? Is it best for me to go forward with the pregnancy and risk continuing a relationship that feels like it's already breaking? Or is it best for me to terminate the pregnancy, move on from Ethan, and try to heal from all of this, even though I'm not sure I'll ever get another chance like this? I feel like I'm drowning in these questions. It's hard to see the answers clearly when everything feels so clouded by emotion. I've thought about going to therapy, about talking to someone who could help me make sense of all this. But even just taking that step feels like a huge leap, like I'm admitting that I can't handle it on my own, which in some ways feels like a failure. I think what hurts the most is the feeling of being torn between what I want and what I think is best for me. I want to have a family. I want to experience motherhood. But I also want a relationship where I feel truly supported, where I don't feel like I'm facing the biggest decision of my life alone. And right now, I'm not sure Ethan can be that person for me. I keep trying to push through it to find the strength to make a decision, but I keep circling back to the same place, uncertainty. It's like I'm standing in the middle of a crossroads with no map. Every choice feels like it could lead me down a completely different path, and I'm terrified that I'll make the wrong one. But at some point, I know I'll have to choose whether it's to have this baby or to walk away from it, whether it's to stay with Ethan or to let go. The weight of it all is heavy, and I'm still trying to figure out how to carry it. I don't have the answers right now, but I'm trying. The days have blurred together, each one feeling like I'm caught in a loop of uncertainty and self-doubt. I've tried to distract myself by focusing on work, spending time with friends, but it's like my mind is always circling back to the same place. What am I going to do? How do I make this decision that will impact the rest of my life? I finally reached a breaking point. I realized that I couldn't keep living in this limbo, caught between indecision and emotional exhaustion. I needed to make a choice for my sake and for my future. So, after a week of sleepless nights and constant reflection, I sat down with Ethan again. This time, I refused to let him shut me out. I had to know where we stood, whether we had a future, or if it was time to let go. I told him in as calm a voice as I could muster that I couldn't continue like this. The silence, the distance, it was killing me. I told him that I couldn't make this decision alone anymore. If we were going to continue being partners, I needed him to be present. I needed him to engage with me, to share his feelings, his fears, his thoughts. At first he was quiet, his eyes avoiding mine. But then slowly the walls started to come down. He finally admitted that he didn't know what he was doing. He had been overwhelmed by the idea of fatherhood, by the thought of being responsible for a child, and the fear of not being good enough for me or for the baby. He said he had been scared of losing me, scared of everything changing, scared of being a failure as a partner and a parent. It was a raw moment. I could see the vulnerability in him, and for the first time in a long while I felt like he was truly being honest with me. But even in that honesty something in me shifted. I realized that while his fears were understandable, his inability to show up for me when I needed him the most had made me question everything. The silence, the avoidance, it had made me feel like I was invisible to him. I told him that I had made my decision. I couldn't stay in a relationship where I felt like I was doing everything alone, even when he was physically there. I didn't want to bring a child into a situation where love and support felt conditional. Ethan didn't take it well. He pleaded with me, tried to apologize, but I knew deep down that I had already made my peace with the decision. I needed to take care of myself. I couldn't keep waiting for him to catch up, to suddenly change, to become the partner I needed. I deserved more than that. I deserved someone who would walk beside me, not someone I had to carry. I didn't immediately go for an abortion, though. I needed time to process, to really come to terms with everything. I spent the next few days in a haze, filled with so many emotions: relief, sadness, fear. It was a strange feeling, knowing I was no longer waiting for Ethan's approval or for his emotional presence. I was finally free to make a decision on my own, and that was terrifying but also empowering. In the end, I chose to terminate the pregnancy. It wasn't an easy choice, and I know that some people won't understand. I've struggled with the idea that I may never get pregnant again, that this could have been my only chance at motherhood. But at the same time, I knew it wasn't the right time for me, not in the environment I had with Ethan, not with the emotional weight I was carrying. As for Ethan, we broke up. It was painful, heartbreaking even, but I knew it was for the best. I deserve someone who is as committed to me as I am to them. And I need to be able to stand on my own, to build a future that's not dependent on someone else's choices or fears. It's been a few weeks since everything ended. I'm still healing, still processing. There are moments when I feel the loss, when I wonder if I made the right decision. But more often I feel a sense of peace that I haven't felt in a long time. I've learned that it's okay to choose yourself even when the world around you is telling you to prioritize everyone else's opinions. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm done waiting for someone else to make the decisions for me. I'm ready to find my own path, to embrace whatever comes next. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my own life again.